Hello, greetings, and welcome back to Tyranids 40K. Today is a special video because I'm trying to answer some questions that I see over and over again in the Kill Team community. Being a channel that is all about Kill Team, I get asked similar questions in each video, or I see them online and I just got done talking about it, or I just answered somebody else's question and I get asked the same thing in another video. So what I'm trying to do, hopefully, with today's video is just kind of create a more better informed Kill Team community, answer some of these questions that people have that just kind of seem to keep coming up over and over again, and hopefully help you guys out in your games. So if that sounds good, I think you'll like today's video. Give it a thumbs up, remember to subscribe to Tyranids 40K, and with that out of the way, let's talk about some commonly asked questions that come up again and again for the game of Kill Team. So first, the most common question I get, or one of the most common questions I get, is can I explain how rerolls work in Kill Team? Do I reroll 1 dice or 2 when I use the tactical reroll ability for 1 CP? See, this is an interesting question because in Kill Team, the amount of dice that constitutes a roll changes quite frequently. For example, if you have a weapon that makes 3 attacks and you don't make any of those attacks successfully hit, you can spend a command point and re-roll 1 of those 3 attacks. So in this case, in this instance, in this example, you would get 1 die to reroll for the 1 command point. But imagine now that you want to reroll a failed charge. Well, the roll for that charge, what that constitutes is 2d6. So if you roll both dice and that is not enough to make a roll successful, you spend that command point to make a reroll. That is both dice that you reroll for that 1 command point. So in one example, you only rolled 1 die. In this example, you're rerolling 2. And that goes for a lot of things. Now, let's imagine that you made a successful hit. You've made a successful wound. You've gone onto the injury roll. How many dice can you reroll with that? Well, that depends on the damage characteristic of the weapon. So if I have a 1 damage weapon, a flamer, a bolter, something like that, my injury roll is only 1 dice. So that's an interesting thing too about Kill Team, is that even if 15 attacks go through, if they're only 1 damage each, I only roll 1 injury die. But if only 1 attack goes through, yet that attack does 2 damage, I roll 2 dice for the injury roll. And therefore, if I were to spend the command point to re-roll that injury roll, it would be for both dice. So if I am shooting a Space Marine with overcharged plasma and I roll for the injury and it's not enough to take him out of action, you spend the command point and now you're re-rolling both injury dice again, because that is a 2 damage weapon and both dice constitute 1 roll. So when you're paying that command point to re-roll the 1 roll, it might be 2 dice sometimes. It might be what you rolled for a D3 result. It might just be 1 die. It depends on the situation itself. Next question I get quite a bit is how many models can I take in a single list? Well, you can take a maximum of 20 normally in most games. If you're playing a campaign, this is your first game of the campaign, you're limited to 12, but normally you can field at once 20 models if you have the points to do that. That is still a battle-forged army. There is a minimum that you have to have as well, which is 3 models. So at least your kill team must contain 3 models with 1 leader amongst them. And at most, you can have 20 models. As far as specialists go, you're allowed to have up to the 3 additional choices that you would want, but that is not mandatory. You can bring no additional specialists other than your leader, or you can bring the additional 3 however you would like, as long as that is legal for your kill team list. Next question I see quite a bit is why should I use something like a power sword if chainswords are free and they give a +1 attack? Well, the thing about Kill Team that I say over and over and over again, Kill Team is a game about list tailoring. It is about counters. It is super competitive even in friendly games because the list builds themselves can give you an edge. The thing about chainswords is that they give you a buff because of the +1 attack, but they don't have any AP. So if you're going against enemies like, say, orcs or something that have a really bad save to begin with, you're trying to force them to roll and fail saves so that you progress to an injury roll. In that case, that +1 attack is a good thing. However, if you're fighting Space Marines, that one extra attack isn't as good as the AP damage that gets done when you're using a power sword, because Marines have a much better save. So even if you get a lot of hits through, a lot of times that statistically leads to less injury rolls at the end of the day, unless you're bringing more AP, because then you're bringing them to a similar situation to the orcs. Once the AP is applied, they have a bad save, they hopefully fail those saves, and then you progress to an injury roll. So the question of what to take, things like that, it depends on what you're fighting. If you're going against horde armies, you need to take a lot of things out. They have bad saves. In that case, a power sword isn't as good as the chainsword. The chainsword's +1 attack is the advantageous choice. But if you're going against an elite team, say Space Marines, they have a few models, but those are really good models. They got good saves. Well, that power sword or a power fist or something like that, a power claw that is going to chew through that save, do a lot more damage, something like that. That's what I would pick. So next question, what is the best commander for Tyranids? This is something that keeps coming up over and over again. I play Nids. You guys know I love them. And for me, I really like the Tyranid Prime. I usually take him as a level 3. Now, the thing about him is I don't have a lot of versatility with him. I have a lot of versatility in the options that I take in my list. So if I'm going against something with a good save, like I was talking about when we were discussing the power swords, well, then something like Lictors are going to be better to take with that commander. But that same commander is really good when you're facing a lot of toughness 3 and you're bringing things like Hormagaunts and Gene Stealers. The thing that I really like about the Tyranid Prime is not that he's an absolute monster on his own and going to go and kill a lot of things. He does have good stats. He does have a good amount of wounds, so he is capable of doing that. But as a strategist specialist, he rounds out some edges that we face with being a Tyranid player. And one of those is expensive tactics that we like to use, things like metabolic overdrive, becoming prohibitively costly and leaving us in situations where we can't afford to use them. And the fact that we have very little ranged attacks available that are quality ranged attacks in our army. He solves both of these problems because he's cheap, which lets us upgrade him with things like the Tactical Planner upgrade for 15 points. That lets us start the game with 3 plus D3 command points in the first turn. So we could be starting this game with 6 command points. And at level 3, he's doing things like reducing the cost of our tactics like metabolic overdrive, which normally costs 2 CP. He's bringing that down to only 1 CP to use. So he's not only giving us more command points to use, he's making things more inexpensive for us, which we're trying to use or needing to use a lot of times. We can use decisive move more often now, decisive strike more often now. So we're charging before they can escape. We're attacking before they get a chance to, even if they charged us, things like that. And as I spoke about range, he has an aura, which is the Alpha Warrior buff. It's 1 command point. It's an aura ability that he has as a commander, which gives things in range a +1 to hit in the shooting and fight phase. This is really good when you also consider that he gives models within range that are specialists the ability to use level 2 tactics, even if they're only a level 1 specialist. So your Tyranid Warrior Gunner, which we can normally only take 1 of and is an expensive investment, all of a sudden he can use the Overwhelming Firepower tactic from the Heavy Specialism for 1 CP, and that is going to give him an extra round of shooting in a single phase. So now all of a sudden it's like you have 2 Tyranid Warrior Gunners. But things get even better for us if you're allowed in the particular game, the league, the campaign, wherever you're playing, if you're allowed to take expansion tactics, things that came in those expansion boxes that were sold for the factions. Because in the Writhing Shadow box that came out, the one that had all the Gene Stealers, inside of that there's a tactics card called Single-Minded Annihilation. And that is something that allows us to fire another time. So it's almost like you have 3 warriors if you have the command points to spend and you have the Tyranid Prime. And with that Tyranid Prime aura giving him the +1 to hit, all of a sudden he's hitting on 3s, doing D3 shots 3 times at strength 8, AP -2, doing D3 damage each. It's just all of a sudden these elite Marine lists have something to worry about at a distance. And this helps us because we don't just have this insane killer bug spraying DACA at them. We have things like Lictors doing moves and charges in the same turn, it starts to get really good for us in that respect. So I really like the Tyranid Prime. I think he is usually the best choice for the Tyranid player to take in a Commander's game. With that said, when we go on to the next question, I get asked all the time, is this a good list? Is that a good list? What if I take X, Y, Z, this and that? How do you think this will do? The thing about this is it's not a complete question for a veteran kill team player. When you ask somebody about a list, it's like I was talking about earlier. Kill team is about list tailoring and figuring out an enemy's weakness and countering that. So when you come to me and ask me about a list, a lot of times there isn't enough information for me. It would be better if you were to come to me and ask, what do I think about this build against this faction or these factions? That is a much more complete question that I can answer a lot better and help you to kind of come up with a better answer to. Because as I said, kill team, you don't put your models on the table till you know the enemy mission or the enemy faction and the mission, which is huge. So if you know you're playing AdMech or something, or Imperial Guard, you can try to go in there with a game plan, a build specifically built to conquer that opponent. And because we have a 20-man roster, you can have a few kill teams in a single roster to choose from whenever you need them. I almost think that kill team is a bad name for the game. I wish they would have called it command roster, because people get this kind of misleading idea that they're going to go out there with one build and conquer the world. And while there are some factions like Death Guard that have single lists that do well against a variety of different opponents and factions and situations and missions, a lot of times a newer player will find more success if they go in with a specific list meant to do well in a specific way. So unfortunately, those of you who have asked this question of me, is this a good list? A lot of times I haven't been able to answer that in a way that I would have liked to, that I feel would have done a better service to you and given you the ability to go out and conquer. All right, so the next question that I get a lot in Kill Team, who makes the injury roll? Well, that depends. It depends on who did the damage. Whoever inflicted the damage rolls the injury roll. So if I shoot you, you fail your saves, all that stuff. When it comes time to roll that injury, I inflicted the damage, I roll the injury roll. Usually it is the opposing player. It is the one who did the damage. All right, next question, something I get quite a lot. What is the strongest kill team faction in your opinion? Well, you know, this is subjective to a point. If I were to have to say what I think the best kill team is, I would think of a lot of things and a lot of contributing factors, and all of them would bring me to the Adeptus Mechanicus. The AdMech is really strong for a lot of reasons. They can take 6 plasma calibers. Well, those 6 plasma calibers are assault profile guns, not rapid fire guns. So even though the Imperial Guard can take more plasma, the AdMech can take better plasma, and they're doing 2 shots from the very beginning. So that means that their 6 plasma calibers can realistically spray out 12 supercharged plasma shots per turn from turn 1. They also have great CC, and by that I mean the melee. They have great melee, and they also have great canticle buffs, which you can choose or roll with things like Shroud Psalm, giving you a -1 to hit them, in addition to the -1 that they normally get for being obscured. That's really good, because in round 1, especially if they want to pull that off, they can move into a really good position in a time where you can't really hit them very well, yet they're still hitting you at a decent ballistic skill. Another canticle that they have that is really good is Benediction of the Omnissiah, which is an army-wide re-rolling 1s to hit. So it's like all of a sudden, those overcharged plasma, even 1s are like water off a duck's back. It's like the entire army is basically now suddenly sniper specialists. It's just so good. In addition to this, they can take 2 Omnispexes in a single list. So not only are they re-rolling 1s army-wide and stuff on a turn, things like that, shooting out all this plasma, but they can have 2 models that have no penalty for obscurity. So you're sitting there hiding, you're trying to shoot back, and they're getting to shoot at full ballistic skill against you. All of these things, they just make AdMech where they start so strong out of the gate. And if you can't survive that, if you're playing an elite team and you take a few early losses, it puts you on the back foot and you become the hunted. And that's not a good situation to be in. AdMech has been the #1 faction that I've played against, and every time that I bring out a new faction, I have 4 different kill team factions that I play right now. Every one of them has had an intense learning curve to try and get around what the AdMech is able to do. So if I were to say, what do I think is the strongest kill team? I would think the AdMech right now. I think they're a sleeper faction. I think a lot of people ignore them because they came in that starter box, and a lot of people started with them, and then they graduated onto what they thought were bigger and better things. But man, if you're able to stick with them, if you're able to invest in the $14 plasma calibers on eBay sold by secondhand parties and get the 6 in your list, 3 on Ranger Gunners, 3 on Vanguard Gunners, you are going to have a beast of a kill team. So next question, do flamers hit automatically in Overwatch, or do you still need 6s to hit? This is an easy one. They're always auto hitting. So if they can see you, if they have any bit of a line of sight, even if you're obscured, even if it's overwatched, no matter what, flamer template weapons are auto hitting. So if they take the shot, boom, they just roll they roll the amount of shots. Just roll the D6. Okay, I got 5. That's 5 hits automatically. No ballistic skill checks needed. Proceed immediately to the wound roll. All right, so next question. If I buy a box of Deathwatch, what is the best way to load them out? Again, these kinds of questions, guys, it depends on the enemy faction that you're playing. What I suggest, if you're doing something like Deathwatch, magnetize. You want to be able to take storm shields. You want to be able to take frag cannons. You want to be able to take the Infernus. You're going to want to bring a couple of intercessors for your comm specialists, for the sergeant who can take a power sword or a chainsword and bring the extra attack. And even on these, you're probably going to want to magnetize. Most of the time, the bolt rifles are the better choice because you can be buffed to 36-inch range with AP -2, starting for free on the board with the bolt rifles. But there are some situations, say you're fighting hordes, a lot of T3 on the board that might be trying to play midfield to backfield. Well, in that situation, the auto bolt rifle starts to be better. However, a better counter in general even to that would be to go for a close combat build, which means storm shields and usually the power maul, since most things that are trying to be a shooty army, we're talking Tau, AdMech, Guard, they are now we're talking the range of toughness 3. So going to strength 6 means you're wounding them on 2s, and the storm shields are going to let you survive that slog a little better into combat, hopefully. Do the job you need to do. Maybe sit on an objective over here. Try not to get shot to death. So I really recommend magnetizing. Magnetize when you're talking kill team. It's something I only started doing recently. I had a friend talk me into trying it, and I will never go back. So next question, does bringing 2 frag cannons or the max plasmas or some other build like that make me that guy? Again, something that I get a lot of questions of, or I see it online. Guys, there's no such thing as that guy. I mean, there is win at all costs, which strictly in my interpretation means cheating. If somebody's going to cheat, there's nothing you're going to be able to do about that. You shouldn't play against them. Don't waste your time. But as far as win at all costs, people bringing a lot of plasma, everything has a counter. I've just been talking about this. The 4 frag cannons, okay, I would like to see how a 4 frag cannon list does against Harlequins. I would like to see how that 4 frag cannon list does against things like AdMech plasma spam or Imperial Guard plasma spam. 4 frag cannons, that is only 4 wounds. You know, you get your basic leader that you have to take, taking you up to 5 wounds for the entire team with a 3-up save. You can take 9 plasmas in a single guard list. You can spam 12 plasma shots from a single AdMech list. A Tau list can bring 4 rail rifles. You will die in 1 turn against the wrong list. So bringing 4 frags, bringing max plasma. Well, plasma is great. Hey, yeah, it does a lot of damage to Marines. But if you start getting a Lictor in your line, if somebody's spamming Gene Stealers, well, they can be in your lines turn 1. They can turn 1 charge your guy. Okay, yeah, overcharge. They have 5-up invuln. They're re-rolling charges. There's metabolic overdrive. There's the veteran move. All of this puts them in your face turn 1. There's an answer to everything. Everything that somebody might try to bring. That's only a temporary situation. And once you have that workaround, they have to evolve. Kill Team is very Darwinian. It's kill or be killed, adapt to what just happened, or die. And this means there isn't really a lot that that guy can do. You can't just show up and roll dice and win against everybody. I don't see it as possible in Kill Team. There are a few things that are harder than others to work around, and there are some factions that are naturally at a disadvantage or an advantage to other factions. So there's that to consider. And then there's also the mission. For example, look at Chaos Marines, the Heretic Astartes. They are a bottom tier faction that has a very hard time dealing with a lot of things out there. But suddenly you take one of the best lists and you put that against something that can spam 20 cultists, and they dominate in the objective missions like recover intelligence. So there's too many factors to keep in mind to be that guy successfully in Kill Team. I don't think that they exist. I've seen people try and they quit a lot of times because they see, oh crap, I got countered. Now I'm going to have to put time and money into a solution to their solution and come up with a workaround. And if they don't have the means to do that within themselves or financially or something, a lot of times they just drop out. So that's what I think about that guy. If you want to bring 4 frag cannons, bring the 4 frag cannons. You're going to get countered. If you want to bring max plasma spam, you're going to do really well against guard. You're going to do really well against Marines, but certain close combat lists are going to chew you up. And lastly, last question that I get quite a bit. If I fail a charge, can I move only part of the distance rolled, or do I have to move the entire roll? So let's look at this. A charge in Kill Team is 2d6 usually. If you're doing Harlequins, it's 3d6, but normally it's 2d6, and you add those together, and that's the distance that you're able to charge. If you get within 1 inch of that enemy model, you are said to have made a successful charge. But if you cannot get within 1 inch, because of the amount that you rolled on those 2d6, you have a choice. You can either stay where you are and not move at all, or you must move the entire distance as close as possible. This was FAQ'd. This is something that is in the errata, and it specifically states that you either basically hold still, you don't move at all, or you can move that whole distance, but you're not getting to, say, take an inch here and duck behind cover or anything like that. It's usually in a straight line, move the full distance rolled. So it's up to you what you want to do. So I hope this helps. Let me know if it did in the comments below. And if you think I missed something, if you think there's something I should know, or if you just have a question for maybe next time, something that you think would be a good addition for one of these in the future, let me know about it. Put that in the comments as well. I think Kill Team is the best game that's out there. I like it more than regular 40K now. I think it's more competitive than normal 40K. I think that it has something to offer for most players. Whether you want fluff or you want crunch, there's something in Kill Team for you. And I think that a lot of people are finding a little group somewhere that has similar ideals to them that makes for a really fun gaming experience, no matter what it is exactly that you want from the game. So I hope this helped you. I look forward to the comments below and another edition of this coming up in the future, where maybe I've had some things come in here that I can put in the next video. As always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This is Beernid40K, and I'll talk to you again next time. Have fun playing Kill Team out there, guys.